Welcome to the At My Desk Training Study Hall for HIPAA, where we make learning simple, engaging, and fun. We do not want to put you to sleep. Sponsored by atmydesktraining.net. Josh Woodward, thanks for the music. Today's topic, choosing your privacy and security officer. Well, when choosing your privacy and security officer, one of the main questions we get, well, we get a lot of questions, but one main question we get is, can I have a certain person be my security and privacy officer? And the short answer is, sure can. You sure can have your security and privacy officer be the same person. Where the size of the organization will come into play is whether you will need two separate people in these roles, or can one person serve as the security and privacy officer? Didn't I already answer that? I said yes. The decision may seem daunting at first, and the entire HIPAA compliance process can be a bit intimidating. So hopefully some information you learn in this podcast will help. The first thing to do is understand the roles of the security and privacy officer. There is some overlap, but there are very distinct roles and responsibilities for each one. And we're going to go over those now. We're going to start with the security officer. The security officer doesn't necessarily have to be an expert in security, but it's essential that they have a solid technical background. Things like what a network is or what malware is, they need to understand what that is, and they need to also be able to engage and speak intelligently to maybe an outside IT firm or person, business associate who has a signed business associate agreement. And they must be aware of where PHI is stored. That includes PHI in transit, at rest, and permanent storage. So for instance, if you're going to store some of your PHI in the cloud, you need to make sure that they are HIPAA compliant. By the way, we have a HIPAA compliant IT cloud services podcast if you guys want to check that out. But anyway, the security officer is also responsible for conducting risk assessments to determine if a company has vulnerabilities within an organization, right? Gaining access to the PHI. Is it easy? Is it hard? Do we need to make some changes? Yes or no? Those are the things that are going to be included in a risk assessment. Really short, sweet answer to that, right? Scheduling and performing security audits. Scheduling HIPAA training. All of these things are under the umbrella of the security officer's responsibility. So you need to make sure your employees are trained, including interns and volunteers, folks. The security officer will also need to coordinate with HHS auditors or OCR auditors whenever necessary. They'll probably ask for the security officer first if there is an audit. Hopefully not, but you want to be prepared if there is, right? The security officer should possess leadership capabilities. People be super duper organized and detail oriented. They have a lot to keep track of. They are responsible for a lot, and it will just make it easier if this person possessed those skills up front. The security officer is also responsible for enforcing the rules and being able to reprimand anyone not following these rules. The security officer will have to work with privacy officer, who we'll talk about in a moment, prior to contracting with business associates or other subcontractors. They need to make sure that they get the okay from the privacy officer. That's their responsibility. Security officers should understand that HIPAA compliance is not a set it and forget it proposition. It requires an ongoing effort to protect EPHI. This effort includes conducting those risk assessments on an ongoing basis. It's not you do it once and it's all over. It's really just a beginning. Those risk assessments should be done on a consistent basis. It could be biannually, it could be quarterly. I wouldn't recommend once a year. I think that's not enough. I think quarterly, monthly is maybe too much, but quarterly may be at the sweet spot. So making sure that the risk assessments are conducted, and internal audits, these security audits, going around the office, making sure people are just not leaving flash drives around, or you can see their computer without the password, stuff like that. Now, it may not be feasible to select the IT manager as your security officer, or anyone else an officer for that matter. Depends on the circumstances and the situation, current responsibilities, so forth and so forth and so on. So in this case, you may want to consider hiring an outside consultant or compliance officer. This can be a temporary or permanent position depending on the needs of your organization. But I'm going to give you a tip. Before this person leaves, before this engagement ends, you need to make sure that they complete a risk assessment and policies and procedures are conducted first. That needs to happen right away. So once they have conducted it and you know all of the information that they have completed, you're in a good position now. And now it's okay. They can kind of walk away, and hopefully they will be there if you have any questions in the future. HHS has made it very clear that there are no quote-unquote certified compliance officers. There's no certified training, certified process. Essentially, there is no magic formula. Essentially, sometimes it depends on the organization, and every organization is different. So I would encourage you to go on to the OCR, Office for Civil Rights. They have a listserv that will provide lots and lots of help for security officers specifically. So take heed and go to check out that resource. I'll make sure I post a link below. So now we can talk about privacy officers, right? Privacy officers are just as important as the security officers. They play an essential role as well. Having a high level of customer service or maybe like patient service is ideal for this position. Privacy officers should also have some business knowledge or how the practice or organization works, how the flow of information goes. It's very important that they understand that. And since the privacy officer will have to maintain lots and lots of information, this person also needs to be super duper detail oriented and have a knack for interacting with people in general and patients especially. Interaction with patients may be frequent for privacy officers because of their responsibilities in this position. They have to maintain accurate records when dealing with patients and staff about possible HIPAA violations, responsible for providing access to records when patients make a request to see their records or make changes to their healthcare records. They must make sure they create, post, and distribute the notice for privacy practices, the MPPs, and maintain a record of patients' receipts of an MPP, right? Interaction with HHS auditors or OCR auditors, just like a security officer would do. That's their responsibility as well. They need to create, implement, and review business associate agreements and make sure that the business associates understand their responsibilities when it comes to protecting PHI and EPHI. Covered entities are just as responsible for making sure the business associates understand this, and it's really the privacy officer who needs to make this happen. The privacy officers are also responsible for making sure they stay up to date on news and changes as it relates to HIPAA. And our podcast will do that. We do a lot of research and we make sure we go out and see what's new, what's happening, any new violations. So if you want that information, you can check out our podcast consistently and just see if there's something new out there. The responsibilities of these two roles, the security officer and the privacy officer, should not be taken lightly. Once you have a process in place, it becomes a little bit normal. It's more like it's normal not to leave medical records around, or it becomes normal not to change your password frequently. It becomes normal to hand out privacy practices and encrypt files on flash drives, so forth and so on. And let me just tell you, there was a dermatologist practice who had to pay $150,000 for it was actually stolen, an unencrypted flash drive. The flash drive was stolen from the vehicle of the employee. They never recovered this flash drive. Over 2,000 patients' PHI was on that flash drive. The practice, they didn't notify HHS or the media as is required by the HITECH Act. HHS was actually tipped off, guys. They got a tip saying, hey, this person's car was broken into and the flash drive is missing. And that's a big no-no. First of all, if you have any patients over 500 that are affected by any breach, HHS should be immediately notified, and the media. It's in the rules. So by them not notifying HHS was a big no-no, and then not notifying the media, another no-no. And actually having the information, this PHI, on this flash drive, unencrypted, no passwords, no nothing, is another big no-no. You guys do not want anybody to pay $150,000 for a fine for something that could be avoidable, should be avoidable. So just he noticed that these things are really important, and it may seem trivial and we're kind of nitpicky at first, really, but it's not. It's not nitpicky, and it's not trivial. It really does matter, and it can save your organization embarrassment. There is a wall of shame online that shows all of the people who are under investigation for HIPAA violations, right? And they put your name out there and how many people were affected. Man, the general public has access to this information just like you do, just like I do, just like anybody does. And if they go on there and see that your office or your practice, guess what, had this flash drive, and the employee took it and it was stolen or lost or whatever, it just kind of seems like you're not taking it so seriously, protecting the PHI of the patient. So guess what, they may go somewhere else, and you don't want that to happen. It's really totally avoidable. And a lot of these things with HIPAA compliance training will be addressed, the do's and the don'ts. If you guys have any questions, we are definitely here to help. Contact at mydesktraining.net, and it's the word at my my desk training, DESK training, TRAINING, sorry, .net, and we will get back to you. A lot of our podcasts come from, guess what, questions from folks like you. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast. If you guys have any questions, need any help as it relates to HIPAA, please let us know. We're here for you guys. Thanks.